Hello, I'm Jake Boudreau, civic journalist at Hello Community Television. This week on The Record, the provincial government granted industrial approval for a new gold mine in Guysborough County. The Nova Scotia Liberal Party intends to introduce legislation limiting the use of social media by young people. The Electoral Boundary Commission provides options for a new Acadian riding in northern Inverness County. A renewed federal-provincial government partnership intends to provide more help for families of missing and murdered Indigenous people. Funding from the provincial government went towards heating plant upgrades at a local school. A new policy has been introduced to address physical and psychological harassment in provincial workplaces. Local organizations were approved for provincial funding earmarked for recreation facilities. But first, Port Hawkesbury Town Council held its monthly public meeting on September 2nd at the Port Hawkesbury Civic Centre. And after the meeting, Deputy Mayor Ian Langley, Chief Administrative Officer Terry Doyle, and Chief Financial Officer Brian Luciano fielded questions from the media. The Port Hawkesbury CAO told Council that the new Chief Financial Officer is settling into his position after replacing former CFO Erin McCacken, who left her position in June to be the Director of Finance for the Strait Regional Centre for Education.
Although it's early days for the Chief Financial Officer, you made some very positive comments about the new person who took over the position. You seem to be satisfied with the hire and how things are going.
Oh, we're thrilled to have Brian Luciano with us. As I mentioned, he comes with significant experience as a CPA, as a professional accountant, and not that usual, but significant municipal experience in two municipalities, both with in senior roles with the town of Antigonish and with the municipality of the County of Inverness, and had done wonderful, great work with those municipalities. And it's a great benefit for someone of that knowledge and ability to come in and start working right away and sort of reducing that transition, time in transition and learning. And we're very, very fortunate to have him here. And Brian is a fairly long-term resident of the town of Port Hawkesbury, and that's wonderful too. And he and his family are here, and I think intend to stay in our community. So we're very, very happy about that too.
So if you're looking for someone to replace a long-standing CFO like Erin McCacken, you're basically getting a quick transition from someone who has worked in two local municipalities, but most recently coming from literally a few kilometers down the road in Inverness County.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. So the loss of Erin McCacken to the town of Port Hawkesbury was significant. Erin was a part of every major decision that the town has made over the last 15 years, and will be sorely missed and extremely hard to replace. But we're quite happy to have the type of the character of Brian to be able to do that. And again, we wish Erin all the best with the Strait Centre for Education.
First of all, obviously, is this your first council meeting with the town, by the way, or did you have a special one over the summer?
Nope, this is the first council meeting I've had with the town of Port Hawkesbury.
So this is nothing new to you in terms of being a municipal CFO with your years with Inverness County, but how are you finding the transition from the county to the town so far?
Transition's been fairly easy. Operations are similar across most municipalities. Staff has been great and really welcoming to get me in my place and get me up to speed quickly.
From the outside looking in, what was your impression of how Port Hawkesbury was running its finances before you got here? I mean, you weren't too far away. What did you think of how the town has been doing and basically where you're starting from with your new position?
I think the town was in a great position. Erin did a wonderful job over the last 15 years to get the town in a really strong financial position for the future.
I'm just curious, I don't know if you can answer this question, but I mean, I'll ask it anyway. Do you get the sense that the mayor and council and the CAO and town staff have a defined vision for how funds will be spent over the coming year and in the years to come? Basically, do you get a sense that you've been given the direction you need to be able to do your job?
Well, we're still going through that now. We're 3 weeks in, so I've got a little bit more digging to do, but from everything I've seen, it looks great.
Now, you live here, right?
Yes.
Okay. Are you from here?
No, but I'm in now just over 12 years now. I've been living in the town of Port Hawkesbury.
We are wondering where exactly are you from before you came here?
So I grew up in Lower Sackville, which is just outside of Halifax. My wife is originally from here, and when we had kids, we wanted them to grow up in a rural area. So we brought them home to Cape Breton.
So has it been the kind of experience that you'd hope to have, you and your wife and your family?
Yeah, it's fantastic. I love it here. I could never see myself leaving.
Although concerns were expressed in June about a sailboat and fishing vessel that were placed on town property near the Port Hawkesbury Pier without the town's permission, the CAO said there are no updates on the vessels when asked by Town Councillor Blaine McQuarrie.
So Terry, early in the meeting, Town Councillor Blaine McQuarrie asked about the status of the vessels. There's a sailboat and a fishing vessel that were down at the waterfront off the wharf, and he was asking for an update on that. But the status of that is still basically the same as what was in June, that they're still there.
Yeah, we've contacted the owners. We've asked them to move the vessels from the town area, just for beautification and for utilization for the land for what it's meant to be. So we're trying to work with the owners to remove those boats.
Any idea where these boats are registered? Basically, what countries' flags are flying?
They're Canadian.
All right, so they're both Canadian. I dare not bring up the name Dutch Runner, but are you concerned at all that we could be in for another situation like we had with that vessel?
No, we're talking about smaller vessels. So these are smaller vessels that are parked on land that have been removed from land because they're not seaworthy. And they're trying to bring them back to a facility or to an area to make them seaworthy or to dispose of them.
You mentioned they're Canadian. Are they from Atlantic Canada, or do you have any idea?
Yes, they're local. They're local folks.
Doyle said the town has entered into a 2-year agreement to conduct waste collection. Deputy Mayor Ian Langley said the deal can save the town money while reducing waste.
Now, you entered into an agreement for waste collection. I didn't get the name of the company, and everyone seems to be satisfied with it. I think what one of the councillors remarked that I think it was actually the deputy mayor, that not only is it going to be looking at financial savings, but it's also going to reduce waste in the town. So maybe you can talk about who that company was and why you guys selected.
Sure. So we've entered into an agreement with Circular Materials. So Circular Materials is a not-for-profit company that's been retained by the province to carry out the extended producer responsibility program for the province. So they've been working with municipalities across the province, and most of the municipalities have actually entered into a similar type of agreement. So the idea is that the producers of waste of the utilization of plastic and paper products for the shipping and storage of materials that are sold are responsible for that cost. So this is a means for us to recover our recycling cost. So for our residents, they won't see any different. So they'll be paying us to offset our costs for recycling. In our case, GFL Environmental Limited will continue to do recycling on the same schedule for a 2-year period, and then we'll look at the process again.
So a savings to the town here.
It's a significant savings to the town. Yes, we think it's a wonderful program. So with the emphasis on the producer to pay for recycling costs, there's also an emphasis on the producer to reduce waste, and in doing so, reduce the costs that they're going to have to incur by disposing of it or recycling it.
Town Council then reviewed correspondence from the Nova Scotia Emergency Management Office about the risk wildfires pose to homeless encampments.
Now, the concern that was expressed with encampments, the letter you received, perhaps you can explain that. What was the specific concern there?
Well, the concern is that some folks that are unhoused are looking for areas for shelter. Sometimes that's in wooded areas. Sometimes that's in recreational areas. Sometimes that's in areas that it can be very, very dangerous for certain activities to be happening when you're living in the rough in wooded areas and areas that are susceptible to forest fire. So it becomes really important that we're on top of that and we work with those people, those unfortunate folks, and to ensure the safety of the residents of the town and surrounding area.
So we're not talking about recreational campers or anything like that. It's people that are there in necessity of vulnerable segment of the population.
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah. Have there been many concerns or complaints brought to the town over just the last few months about this?
We've dealt with a few cases. I'm aware of 3, but there might be more. But we worked in all cases from our perspective. Things have worked out quite well. Those that were involved were quite cooperative and willing and understanding, and were able to find other places to move on to.
So who would be involved in a case like this? Would it be town staff? Would RCMP get involved in this? Just how would the process work?
Yes, both. Well, town staff and the RCMP.
All right.
And given the hot, dry weather we've experienced and the dryness that's in the woods right now, I assume a lot of those people realize there is a danger there and wildfire threat is real, and they didn't really give the law enforcement people any trouble as far as clearing out or whatever.
Absolutely. And even before it's been a very dry summer for a very long time. But even before the emergency services measures were taken, we've had some instances, and any time in the woods can be dangerous. And so, from my perspective, we were very fortunate to be able to deal with the folks that we did. Tremendous support from the RCMP and really appreciate the professionalism and their ability to work with residents and visitors to the town. We're very, very fortunate.
Terry, I'd just like to pick up on a bit of a theme there, and I don't know if this is a public works question, but I'll ask you to it anyway. How did the town deal with those hot, dry conditions over the summer, and specifically in terms of water conservation? It doesn't seem like Port Hawkesbury put out any specific measures other than repeating what the province had said about staying out of the woods. Can you give me a sense on just basically how Port Hawkesbury dealt with the hot, dry summer that we had this year?
Well, I think we try to encourage our residents to take water conservation measures. Our reservoir, so our raw water supply, is in Landry Lake. Landry Lake is a very large reservoir. It wasn't as affected as some reservoirs for some municipalities. So we were extremely fortunate to have the supply that we had at this time. And so we weren't as restricted as others, but we do know that other municipalities had severe restrictions, essential restrictions put in place to meet minimum requirements. And we were trying to encourage everyone to act responsibly.
The next item of correspondence reviewed by Town Council was from the Provincial Justice Minister concerning the future of policing in Nova Scotia. Mayor Brenda Chisholm-Beaton said municipalities are going to be consulted, and Port Hawkesbury will be providing its input.
The future on policing in Nova Scotia. Maybe we can just talk a little bit about what's going on there. It seems like it's a review of services, but you mentioned there was some billing changes. So maybe first off, just talk generally about what that review entails and what are the changes that are coming.
So there's been an extensive review of policing within the province of Nova Scotia and how it's delivered. Policing costs to municipalities represents a very large portion of our budget, and it's extremely important. It's important budget-wise and, of course, operationally. So I think the province is trying to find that balance of what is the best model for policing in our municipalities, and what should that look like. One of the components of that is how do you bill for that? So there's kind of 2 models. One is a contract with a municipality directly with the RCMP. The other one is a combined contract with other like municipalities through the province of Nova Scotia. So the province of Nova Scotia has a contract with the RCMP for municipal policing, and we become part of that contract, or we're a signatory to that. We're not a signatory, we're a recipient of that service. So, so they're looking at that whole model and what works best, because there's various models. There's private, or not private police force, but local police forces in some very small towns. There's a wide range of the ratio of police officer to resident. There's a wide range of how to evaluate how many police officers you need. And there's various ways to look at how do we pay for that. And the way we pay for the police officers now is very simplistic. So if we have, you pay by the number of constables that are employed in the area. So, and the province is looking at, well, there's more, there might be a better way to look at that, and taking in a number of different factors. We really don't know what that looks like, if it's going to improve our contribution or increase our contribution, and how that's going to affect everyone. So we're waiting to see how that study moves forward. Very happy that we had the opportunity to have input into that.
I'm just wondering, once that study comes out, would there be any kind of public consultation within the town about whether residents would favor continuing with the RCMP or trying a municipal police force?
I think those decisions are being made provincially. So I can foresee some community type of consultations as we move forward. There has been fairly extensive consultation so far directly with municipal, with council and mayor councils and staff, directly with municipalities, which has been very useful. Getting into the community is something that we'll leave to the province.
Finally, the municipality of the County of Inverness will be making a presentation to Port Hawkesbury Town Council about the former Mabou Asylum.
But you said you're looking forward to the presentation from Inverness County about the Mabou Asylum. Why is that?
Oh, absolutely interested to learn more about that for several reasons. Inverness County administered the asylum, as I understand in the letter from the warden, Miss Bonnie McIsaac. That proclamation to administer the asylum, I understand, was in 1889, which coincides with the year the town of Port Hawkesbury was incorporated. Must have been a significant year, and for, just want to rest assured that I wasn't around in that time, but it must have been an interesting year. That there's opportunity in that, in that presentation to strengthen our relationships with our neighboring municipality, and I look forward to that and learning about the asylum. I understand in the letter that there's 110 souls buried there. Some are from the Port Hawkesbury area, and Inverness and Port Hawkesbury have lots of intermunicipal relationships. We deliver and treat potable water to Port Hastings. We receive wastewater and treat it. We share IT services. We own an airport in Port Hastings. And they're looking for us to collaborate on a commemorative monument or something. We'll find out. And I look forward to learning more about that and seeing how we can strengthen our relationship so we can capitalize on opportunities together. And there are some more opportunities out there which a good working relationship would have a better chance of being successful.
So what do you think that can be learned from the data that comes out of the Mabou Asylum and its various studies that might apply even to perspectives on mental health in the present day? Obviously, we're many decades removed from the concept of having an asylum, having that kind of way to deal with those with extreme mental health issues. But do you think that even just by connecting the dots that there could be something helpful that could apply to the present day?
We're more than many decades. We're over a century. 1889, they received proclamation to administer that asylum. Mental health is much less stigmatized today, for sure, thankfully. And priorities on mental health are as important as priorities on physical health. And if they're not taken care of, then they can be just as damaging. So that was my comments on that.
Okay, sure. Quick question. Are they presenting at Committee of the Whole or the next council meeting, or has a date been set?
You're asking the wrong question to the wrong person because I thought they were going to be here tonight. I was hoping to hear them tonight. So we'll send the invite and hopefully they'll come.
Now, the presentation on the asylum, that's going to be done by municipality, County of Inverness. When do you expect that's going to take place? And do you know what the nature is of that presentation? What are they going to be talking about?
So I think the municipality County of Inverness are working with a group that's looking at recognizing this facility that's been in there in the county for a significant amount of time and has a significant history. And they're wondering how best to recognize that. And we really don't have the knowledge around that. We know a little bit about the history, but we'll await a presentation. We're hoping that we're going to take Inverness up on their offer, on the warden's offer, and ask for people to come and present. And we're going to learn more about what their vision is for moving forward with that project.
Any idea when they're coming to make that presentation?
No, so we just have approval tonight. So typically staff will go back and forth and figure out a time that's going to work for them and what's going to work for us, and we'll move forward in a timely manner.
After 7 years of consultation and study, the provincial government announced that the Goldboro Gold Mine received approval on August 27th. Work on the mine, which is owned by Canadian company Next Gold Mining Corp., is expected to start in 2026, the province noted. Kevin Bullock, CEO and president of Next Gold, said this is a great day for Nova Scotia and the Goldboro Gold Project. He said the Next Gold team has a demonstrated reputation of developing and operating in an environmentally responsible and sustainable manner. We respect the land and communities in which we work and live, Bullock said. This is indeed a tremendous moment and is a testament to the hard work and effort by all parties to reach this critical milestone. Canada is a global leader in precious metal products, and Nova Scotia will be a part of that valuable industry, the CEO noted. The province said the Goldboro Mine project has a 15-year timeline that includes development, 11 years of operation, and remediation. The province also said at least 770 hectares of Crown land to Next Gold for this mine. Part of the mine will be on the Crown land, and part will be on land the company owns, the province said. The province said the mine is expected to create 735 new jobs and contribute $2.1 billion to Nova Scotia's gross domestic product. The project is also projected to generate $1.1 billion in direct and indirect household income in Nova Scotia over 15 years, as well as about $528 million in tax revenue, with $275 million in provincial, $44 million in municipal, and $209 million in federal taxes, the province said. The company also has benefits agreements with the municipality of the District of Guysborough and the Assembly of Nova Scotia Mi'kmaq Chiefs, noted the province. Guysborough Warden Paul Long said the project will provide significant socio-economic benefits for the municipality and surrounding areas during the construction and operational phases. The warden said the local benefits include meaningful direct and indirect job creation, community benefit agreements, growing the GDP in Nova Scotia, and providing additional municipal tax revenues. Noting that the project received environmental assessment approval on June 2nd, 2022, the province added that the industrial approval has stringent terms and conditions. With me is the House Leader for the Nova Scotia Liberal Party. Welcome back, Ian Rankin.
Great to see you, Jake. Thanks for having me today.
On August 27th, your party introduced what you called a landmark bill protecting children from social media. As students across Nova Scotia return to school, the Nova Scotia Liberals said they are committed to tabling Social Media Responsibility Act, legislation that would make Nova Scotia the first province in Canada to set a minimum age of 16 for social media use, following the lead of countries like Australia and Norway. Maybe you can explain what is going on in Australia and Norway that you guys are following their lead on this.
Norway is very close to implementing theirs, but Australia is fully along the way. It started at the province levels there as well, so we got some confidence out of that. The premier of a place in the south area of Australia presented the restriction for those under the age of 16 to have a social media account, and then the national government took it on, and we'd love to see that here. But often these types of issues that are challenging start at the local or provincial level, and then they grow from there. We've seen that with smoking restrictions in like public places. Halifax is a pioneer there. flavored tobacco restrictions, which our government did not that long ago, really, to keeping it from minors. And this is about our children at the end of the day. And if we can make Nova Scotia a leader once again in keeping our kids safe from harmful things like access to social media, I think that would be an awesome initiative for the government to take on. It's an opposition bill, which is a challenge, but nonetheless, it's our job to bring forward issues that are really important. And what's more important than the mental health of our kids?
Your party said the bill comes at a time when parents and experts are sounding the alarm on the mental health crisis facing young people, with mounting evidence showing how social media contributes to anxiety, depression, and suicidal ideation. Now, your party pointed to a 2023 study from the U.S. Surgeon General warning that youth who use social media for more than 3 hours per day have double the risk of poor mental health outcomes like depression and anxiety. What are you hearing about young people and social media here in Nova Scotia?
Yeah, I mean, Nova Scotians have the same access to all the major platforms as anywhere else. Like to find disaggregated data for at the provincial level will be very difficult. But I think it's fair to assume that the impacts on our ERs and when we know that ER visits for self-harm are growing across the world, and particularly for youth, for anxiety, for major depression issues, and suicide rates. I mean, that can't get any more serious. Like 56% raise and suicide rates for the age between 10 and 24 is alarming. And for ages 10 to 14, girls, 167% increase, boys, 91% increase. So this corresponds directly with the year that smartphones became prevalent, 2010. As many would know, Facebook started around 2006, 2007, and then grew, and the algorithm control is growing. So the anxious generation, actually, that the book, if anyone's interested, would lay this all out very clearly, but there's other sources of data, and I like facts and evidence, and that's what I rely on when I look at proposing legislation, and we are going to consult, but for me, I've been looking at this issue for over a year now, and it's time right before school starts to, at the very least, have the conversation, and then parents can go ahead and do their own research.
You said your party will table the bill this fall to ensure that children under 16 are not exposed to harmful content or interactions that can have lifelong impacts on their mental health. Now, you've talked about being a father yourself. Perhaps you can talk a little bit about how you view such a legislation. You alluded to this, but it seems it's personal.
Yeah, it is. I think anyone that has kids should be really concerned. My kids are very young, so my oldest, Freya, is not even 4. So this isn't totally relevant to that age group because they wouldn't know how to create a social media account. But I can see it in YouTube, just watching the quick clips of things and how the usage of this online material can, raise the dopamine levels and have this kind of addiction start. So this is a start. I think it's it's going to be something that policymakers are going to have to grapple with, especially with the advent of AI. That's so new as well, and there's disturbing stories coming out on that. So as policymakers, as legislators, we have to try to catch up, I think, with some of the platforms that are completely unregulated. So I don't think anyone would think we should go back to a world where alcohol is unregulated or smoking is unregulated. And the evidence of the pernicious impacts, you can draw parallels. So that's why for me, it's like I know people might think it could be a drastic step, but really that's what everyone was saying when we brought in restrictions on alcohol use and smoking in public places.
Now, the Liberals noted that last year the government implemented a cell phone ban in schools to help reduce distractions and support students' well-being. Your party said the next step is to take the same principle outside of the classroom. And I assume this is for your party and for you, this is the next logical step.
It is, yeah. I think, cell phones, it's not a full ban in the schools, it's a restriction. We'd like to see it as a full ban, but credit is due that they move forward with something that I think is a bold step. This is something that follows the same paradigm and how we restrict children from being distracted by phones, because this impacts when you go outside of the classroom. The evidence shows it impacts sleep. So you have sleep deprivation. They're not going to be the same trying to learn the next morning in school when they're up all night and can't put the phone down. And it's really hard for parents to make these decisions as one-offs, because then that could further alienate a given child that doesn't have access to the same social media platforms where people would keep in contact for different events that they should be at, and their social networks, so to speak. So if government can step in, it makes it, I believe, easier on parents. And I'm inundated with support from parents, emails reaching out across the province and actually beyond too, just in support of taking some steps forward to help them.
Now, your colleague in the Liberal caucus, interim leader Derek Mumbricket, said this legislation would create clear protections for families and make Nova Scotia a national leader in putting children's safety first. Why is it that other provinces haven't taken this step that the Nova Scotia Liberals intend to do?
Yeah, and Derek has children a little bit older than mine. I think they're at the age where this would have an impact. They're starting to think about having social media access. So we're both dads. We both think that we can speak as fathers, but in terms of other provinces, Quebec looked at the committee level, looking at studying the issue, and I think they found that there were impacts. So I wouldn't be surprised if they moved in a progressive direction, but other provinces, maybe they're waiting for the national government to make a decision on this. I can tell you anecdotally that there are members from all parties that support it, and that's from experts that we consult with that have told us. So there's a petition going around that will be presented at the federal level, and ideally that's what would happen in the end. But again, Nova Scotia took leadership roles in the past before other provinces did, so it's an opportunity again for the government to do that.
Now, there's a family in the United States that has a lawsuit against ChatGPT because their son committed suicide, and they believe that that platform actually encouraged him to commit suicide, to take his own life. And now that we're seeing real world proof of instances of what you're referring to, I suppose that does give this a little more meat on the bone to proceed with legislation like this.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot happening just in the last week, and we didn't, we chose the day before school got back in, the week before. But I did see that news article, and AI is a whole new thing for policymakers to try to grapple with, and how that's regulated. But we haven't even regulated the social media aspect first, which has been around since the mid 2000s. So it's scary, and I think there's conversations happening around this throughout the world, and we're going to have that conversation in the House session come this fall.
The independent 2025 Electoral Boundaries Commission released its interim report recommending 3 scenarios for a new Acadian riding in Inverness County. One option is to retain the current riding of Inverness, which takes in the town of Port Hawkesbury and the municipality of the county of Inverness. Next, the commission is looking at a riding encompassing Shettycamp and the Margarese, which would have 3,924 voters, with 35.98% of those considered francophone. The next scenario, called Doyle's Bridge, would move the eastern border of the Shettycamp and Margarese riding to include some mostly uninhabited areas that have long been considered part of the Shettycamp community, the commission said, noting the mountain line created a natural demarcation, and it is believed this new scenario reflects the true historical and cultural boundary of the community, the commission said. This riding would have 2,805 voters, but 47.18% of those would have what the commission refers to as francophone weight. Commission members were appointed in April by an all-party select committee of the House of Assembly for the purpose of recommending electoral boundaries to provide effective representation of the Acadian region of Shettycamp and area, the province said. The last review of the province's electoral boundaries took place in 2018-2019, and although reviews normally take place every 10 years, the province said this review is taking place now as a result of an order by the Supreme Court of Nova Scotia, which ruled that the previous Commission's decision not to create an exceptional electoral district for Shettycamp violated Section 3 of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Commission Chair Kenneth DeVoe thanked everyone who attended his public consultation meetings in Shettycamp, Port Hawkesbury, and Inverness on July 23rd and 24th. DeVoe said the Commission received a rich body of commentary during the first round of public consultation in the summer, and he encourages everyone to come out to the fall meetings or send written submissions and make their opinions heard. A second round of meetings is planned for October 4th to 6th in Mabou, Shettycamp, Margaree Forks, and Waikagama for further public consultation before the Commission submits its final report to the Premier of Nova Scotia in early 2026. Joining me from the Nova Scotia Department of Justice are Amy McNeil, Senior Manager of Victim Services, and Dean Gowdy, Indigenous Victim Case Coordinator. Welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
The provincial government recently announced that a renewed partnership with the Government of Canada will ensure that more families of missing and murdered Indigenous people have help when they need it most. The agreement provides more funding for Nova Scotia's Family Information Liaison Unit, a program coordinated through Provincial Victim Services, the province noted. A portion of funding also goes to the Nova Scotia Native Women's Association for its work on community outreach and prevention, the province noted. Perhaps first you can talk about the work of the Family Information Liaison Unit. What does it do? What is its purpose?
Yes, well, I can take that. That is my role here with Victim Services. And I would say that my work is split between family support and outreach. So the Family Information Liaison Unit, which we call FILU, the work is vast and it's not as structured as other tasks that I have. So I get requests and the needs are very unique depending on the particular situation of the client that we have at the time. A lot of the work I do is gathering information for the families, which is the purpose of the unit. So, for example, a family member might be requesting information from a police department regarding a police investigation that may have already come to a conclusion. Now, if it's an active criminal investigation, I can also help them navigate the criminal justice process. Or maybe it's a family member who's requesting details from a medical examiner's report. So my FILU role here is finding the information, but how I get it depends a lot on many factors, including where we are in the investigation, the police force that might be involved, which could be controlled by different policies depending on which force we're talking about. I can also do things like connect people to elders and other culturally sensitive supports. And through our partner, the Nova Scotia Native Women's Association, we organize things like gatherings that I participate in which elders are present, there are other survivors, and it is a great way for healing for family members of the missing and murdered.
Now, Amy, perhaps you could talk about Victim Services.
Sure. So Victim Services is within the Department of Justice. The purpose of Victim Services is to support victims of crime and their loved ones through the criminal justice process within the province of Nova Scotia. So some of that could look like, it's very navigational. So some of that could look like providing information on a case as it moves through the criminal justice system. It could also be something as simple as providing general updates on court dates when they occur, where the locations are, the court preparation and court accompaniment. So having support to go through that process with. We assist with restitution. We assist with referrals to other community or government agencies, depending on what the needs of the client might be. We assist with testimonial aids. We do personalized safety planning and do a lot of supports for gender-based violence and intimate partner violence. We also have a program, a criminal injuries counseling program that can provide support through funded counseling for those who are impacted by crime. We have an independent legal advice program We have a sexual offense legal representation program. So there's quite a few different things. We also provide supports to specifically to victims and survivors of human trafficking and sexual exploitation. And then along with that also is our Family Information Liaison Unit, which we refer to as FILU.
Now, the Nova Scotia Native Women's Association, where does that fit in? Is it mainly an advocacy group, a lobbying kind of group? Where does it fit in the in this structure?
They're a close partner with my work. So I find what their role would be, they do a lot of the frontline work in that they organize a lot of events. They have intimate knowledge of community elders and things that other people might not. So they're great at getting really culturally sensitive supports in place for the families to take advantage of. And I don't want to speak too much for what they do specifically, but that's a lot of my interaction with them. Mm-hmm. It's them partnering at gatherings in which I'm included.
One of the things I could speak to, Jake, just in following up to Dean's reference with the Nova Scotia Native Women's Association, so we work very collaboratively with them. So the kind of the structure is, the FILU case coordinator, like that supportive role through victim services. They're kind of the dedicated provincial lead, like responsible for like the administration and the delivery of the programs and services to families. So working collaboratively with the Nova Scotia Native Women's Association and the Nova Scotia Native Women's Association, they're community outreach specialists. So they take the lead on providing like the culturally relevant and the client oriented supports, like really out in the community, that kind of frontline services and supports for family members and loved ones.
With the additional funding, the provincial government said the unit will add a full-time case coordinator with victim services and a full-time community outreach position at the association. So I assume that these are not specialized positions, that these would be in addition to the resources that you already have, and that the intent is that they're going to share the workload with the existing people in those units.
Yes, that would be correct. The extra, this funding, like it's certainly welcomed. The additional funding does exactly that. It allows for us to expand our specialized supports and services in collaboration with the Nova Scotia Native Women's Association, with the focus on providing that support, navigation, whatever the families and the loved ones need.
And Dean, from your perspective, I assume it's much the same as what Amy just mentioned, that it's helpful to have, even if it's one extra body or two extra people there to really share the workload there.
Absolutely. I mean, any additional funding is very much welcomed. And, it's all about having the supports in place to help the families heal, and any additional resources really help us do that for sure. So it was very welcome.
Attorney General and Justice Minister Becky Drouin said Nova Scotia's Victim Services strives to provide supports that are culturally responsive and easy to navigate so that people can access justice and move toward healing. She said the Family Information Liaison Unit is an important resource for Indigenous families. So is this an emphasis on reaching out to marginalized communities in general, or is really the emphasis on Indigenous communities right now because of the recent many cases of unsolved murders of Indigenous women and men and younger people?
So the FILU, the emphasis is on missing and murdered Indigenous persons and their families and their loved ones. The FILU recognizes the importance of, engagement in accessing information and services for the families and the loved ones that have been impacted. So that is the primary focus.
Now, the unit provides specialized support services to families of missing and murdered Indigenous people in a family-centered, culturally grounded, and trauma-informed manner, the province said, noting that it helps gather information from government sources about the family's loved ones, including assistance in addressing unanswered questions, and also makes connections between family members and cultural advisors, elders, and other culturally grounded community supports. So is this about keeping the families in the loop a lot of times, and when the justice system in the past may not have done that as well, or in some cases at all?
It's certainly about keeping families up to date with information. As I touched on a little bit about the beginning when I was describing my role, a large part of my role is breaking down some barriers to information that families may have. They might not know how to navigate these incredibly complex systems, even dealing with the police agencies. So helping with that, helping with the medical examiner's reports, information that they need in order to start their journey to healing, that's a big focus of the unit for sure.
Yeah, it seems as though trying to learn from the lessons of the past where these things just were not even considered or done, and now is the time to implement these changes, I guess.
Yes, but before my unit or before me being here, I'm not sure how you would navigate such a complex system on your own. So I'm happy to be here to help bridge that gap. Absolutely.
Now, we talked about they're hiring case coordinators, but there also is going to be some money attached to this. The funding is provided by Justice Canada through the Federal Victim Strategies Victims Fund. The new agreement provides a total of almost $2.2 million over 5 years, an increase of almost $800,000 from the previous 5-year agreement. The fact that you guys got some extra coordinators and now you're getting this money, I assume the money is not just to pay for these extra coordinators, it's also to provide your units and departments with more resources as well.
Yeah, so some of that, like as you reference, it's having extra folks being able to provide the supports and be there to support the families. But there's also a piece in terms of an educational piece, an outreach piece in providing and having that available for communities and the public in general. And Dean had referenced earlier, it being about being trauma informed. So within that, like if we look at the approach where we want to move within supporting families and loved ones, it's about creating safety and support and empowering them and for them to have choice to make decisions and not, for there to be room within what support looks like depending on what that family or that individual needs. So in doing that, there comes with that a need to have an understanding of what people actually need rather than telling them what they need. So that piece ties into with that part about being, understanding the effects of trauma, and taking an approach on how to recognize that and respond to the impacts of those who are traumatized and how best to do that. So in doing that, it's very important to have that relationship building and understanding, to be culturally aware, and to have that navigational outreach piece as well to tie it in with those positions.
Sean Fraser, Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada, as well as the MP for Central Nova, said for many families, getting information about a missing or murdered loved one is an essential part of the healing process. So not just from a judicial perspective in informing the families, if these families are able to move on, this needs to be done as part of that healing process that he was talking about.
I would agree with the statement for sure that families need to have this information in order to start their healing process. And once again, I feel like I touched on this a little bit before, but the information side of things is one of the most important aspects. And because it's the focus of our group, I believe it's really bringing important work to the front and that we can help people begin their healing process.
The fact that people are able to get this information and feel like that their voices are being heard, I guess, without that component, it's going to be hard, would be hard for people to move on, especially people who've suffered the trauma of losing a loved one or a friend, a family member, or whatever else.
That's right. And we know that through like the supports and services that are coming through the FILO program, we'll never fully understand or be able to ease the pain that these families and these loved ones are experiencing. Our only hope is that the Philo program can assist and support them in some manner that might aid them in their healing process.
Now, Leah Martin, the Minister of Legal Affairs of Nova Scotia, said too many Mi'kmaq families in Nova Scotia have faced barriers when searching for answers about their loved ones. And we talked about this fairly extensively. And I assume that the hope from all of this, from hiring these people, getting this extra money, is that this becomes a thing of the past and kind of a new era emerges where, you know, basically those are practices of the past that are going to be kept in the past.
I believe that the liaison unit is a really important resource that provides a family-centered, culturally grounded, and trauma-informed support. So I'm really pleased to see it continue and actually expand. Absolutely.
Well, that's great. I really appreciate you guys taking time out of your busy schedules to speak with me, answer my questions, and speak with our viewers about this very important topic. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your questions. It's a great topic, so I'm glad to talk about it.
Thank you, Jake.
The provincial government announced they approved funding for upgrades at École Beauport in Arishat. Richmond MLA Trevor Boudreau announced on September 2nd that $1.2 million was spent on heating plant upgrades at the Almadam School. Boudreau said students and staff at the Conseil Scolaire Acadia Provincial facility will return to warm, reliable classrooms this school year. He said this project will enhance the learning environment for students and staff by modernizing critical heating systems to ensure reliable climate control throughout the facility. This substantial investment in École Beauport demonstrates our government's commitment to supporting Francophone education and ensuring all students have access to modern, comfortable learning environments, Boudreau said. These heating upgrades will create optimal conditions for student success while reducing energy costs for years to come, the MLA added. Boudreau said this project is part of his government's comprehensive school capital plan, which is delivering essential infrastructure upgrades to schools in all regions of the province. The current round of investments includes 18 schools, with projects ranging from heating plant and roofing upgrades to septic system improvements and window replacements, the government added. Joining me is the Executive Director of the Occupational Health and Safety Division with the Department of Labor, Skills and Immigration. Welcome, Fred Jeffers.
Thanks, Jake. Happy to be here today.
So the provincial government recently announced that all workplaces in Nova Scotia will soon have a policy addressing physical and psychological harassment. The provincial government announced that the new harassment in the workplace regulations under the Stronger Workplaces for Nova Scotia Act will take effect September 1st. So what does this act mean for working Nova Scotians?
So, Jake, I think, over the past number of years, we've done engagements with Nova Scotians. We were able to speak with our colleagues across the country. And the time was right for Nova Scotia to start to include psychological hazards with physical hazards in our occupational health and safety legislation. So traditionally, health and safety legislation really only addressed physical hazards. And the time was right for us to expand that, so it now includes psychological hazards. And of course, the harassment prevention regulations will provide a framework for employers and employees so they can understand, what that looks like in the workplace, what they need to do, what their roles and responsibilities will be.
Now, the province said more than 600 Nova Scotians participated in the public engagement sessions to help shape the new regulations. They shared personal stories and called for clearer policies, better training, stronger leadership, and meaningful supports for those affected by harassment, the provincial government noted. How much did this input inform what later came to be in those regulations?
Well, interestingly, it contributed a lot. So it was kind of nice. This was a circumstance where as I said, we engaged Nova Scotians. We looked at what had happened in other jurisdictions across Canada and across the world. And we even engaged our own staff internally here with the department to understand what they've been hearing as well, because they're out there every day in workplaces and they get an opportunity to speak with employers and employees. And it's interesting that in this case, all those three pieces really lined up very well. and there was a lot of overlap. So we really felt comfortable about where we landed with these regulations and what they include. We felt that they really did a good job in answering some of the questions that Nova Scotians had, both employers and employees, and it lines us up very nicely with what's happening.
When did this public engagement process start, and how long did it take?
So we started, this project's been underway now since early 2023. Later in 2023, we had engagement sessions with all across the province with workers, safety associations, unions, there were organizations that were able to be involved. So that was the start of it. The research with other jurisdictions went on throughout. And once we sort of had a sense of what the regulations were going to look like, earlier this year, we went back and did a survey with Nova Scotians to get just to sort of get a pulse check as to help us make sure we landed, in the right place.
Now, the provincial government said the new rules apply to all provincially regulated workplaces in Nova Scotia. They said harassment can include bullying, intimidation, threats, and unwanted behavior that causes harm. Employers must have a written harassment prevention policy that includes expectations, how to report concerns, and how complaints will be investigated, the province noted. The provincial government said employers must commit to confidentiality and non-retaliation and train staff on the policy, which must be reviewed at least every 3 years. Does this not only include provide clarity to employers as well as rights to workers?
Very much so. So it is to provide that framework that employers have a clear understanding of what the responsibilities are. But it does also speak to expectations with employees, and that they're very much encouraged to report harassment as they see it in the workplace. There's always that responsibility for employees to take training and to become familiar with policies in the workplace so that they know clearly what their roles and responsibilities. So it's very much workplace safety. It doesn't matter whether we're talking about hazardous materials or falling off a building or harassment in the workplace. All the parties in the workplace have a role.
Now, what does it actually mean by provincially regulated workplaces? What are we talking about here?
So there's federally regulated workplaces in the province, whether they be federal sites such as D&D properties or other federal buildings and workplaces. There's also those entities that fall under federal regulation, such as banking institutions, interprovincial trucking, telecommunications, those sorts of things. So they are not, they follow the federal labor program when it comes to the health and safety program, as opposed to our provincial requirements.
Now, Nolan Young, the Minister of Labor, Skills and Immigration, said everyone deserves to feel safe at work, physically and psychologically. And you had mentioned this too, that, for years you guys had been dealing with the physical component. Now you guys are dealing in the psychological realm, which would be a change for your department and some of the people, I would imagine, because it's not really comparable. Physical injury is pretty evident at times, unless you're talking about soft tissue. But a psychological injury, it's hard to kind of classify that in the same way at all.
Very much so. And part of this work, there were sort of two streams of this project over the last couple of years. One was the sort of the development of the regulations, what it's going to look like for the workers in the workplaces. But at the same time, we had an internal group sort of looking at how we would operationalize this as this unfolds. So, we certainly recognize that this is something new when it comes to health and safety in Nova Scotia. And as we roll this out, the focus of our team is going to be with their workplaces and supporting them with resources and other materials to help them get their policies and
Now, noting that you work with the Workers' Compensation Board Review Committee that recommended this change, Nova Scotia Nurses Union President Janet Hazelton said her union welcomes regulations requiring employers to institute an anti-harassment policy. She said psychological safety is as important as physical safety. Now, I'm assuming in professions like nursing, I'm thinking of paramedics, police, there is a particularly acute need for these new changes, not to dispel what the psychological impacts could be in other sectors and other employers, but I'm assuming some of these frontline sectors, there is a very acute need.
Yes, exactly, Jake. I mean, when we think about it, there's sort of two streams that this can follow, and one is harassment within the workplace between workplace parties, so between employees. And that of course would be a risk in any workplace. And then of course there's those scenarios where there's a risk of harassment from external sources, so clients or patients or customers or so on. So, clearly any of those sectors where there's there are higher risk, there's a higher risk of that external source of harassment, such as, emergency services, health services, of course, retail is another one, where there is a higher risk of that exposure from those external sources.
Now, according to Workers' Compensation Board Nova Scotia, 194 psychological workplace injuries were reported in 2024, which was up from 150 3 years ago. How do you account for this increase?
Well, I think and I can't speak too much about the workers' compensation stream of things. We're on the enforcement side, but at the same time, we have to remember that there's certainly new claims available in the workers' compensation side, and that would certainly play a role in the number of claims that they have. And I think too, we need to expect, even from our own experiences here, we certainly see that as the general public learn more and understand more about psychological safety, whether it's harassment or other forms of psychological injuries. We're getting more questions, we're getting more input from the public, getting more calls and things. So we expect, as people become more aware of this as a risk, we're going to get a lot more inquiries, and I would expect that that would translate on the injury side as well.
Yeah, you're not of the belief that workplaces are becoming more psychologically abusive or anything like that in the past 3 years. It's just there's more ways of people to be able to report such incidents, and that would account for the increase.
Yeah, very possible. That's true.
I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to sit down with me, speak with me and our viewers. Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
Thanks, Jake. I really appreciate that. And I encourage you to share, I think, in some of our materials. We do have a dedicated webpage, preventworkplaceharassment.ca. And any workplace parties out there, as they're working toward getting the policy up and running, go to that webpage. There's some great resources there. There's some link to some online training that they can recommend for staff. There's a great manual that we developed that has a template in it for policy. So hopefully all the materials that they'll need to help them get this out to them.
Community groups, municipalities, and other not-for-profit organizations receive provincial funding to build and improve recreational facilities. Provincial Recreation Facility Development Grant recipients for 2025-2026 include $30,000 for the Richmond Boxing Club and $100,000 for Tamarack Education Centre in Port Hawkesbury through the Strait Regional Centre for Education. The province said 32 community organizations are receiving support through the Recreation Facility Development Grant Program, which invests in upgrades to parks and playgrounds, trails, athletic fields, and other spaces that encourage participation in sport and physical recreation. In total, the province said it is spending $2.7 million. Dave Ritchie, Minister of Communities, Culture, Tourism and Heritage, said community recreation spaces are where healthy habits take root, where kids learn skills, neighbors connect. With this investment, we're creating safe places where kids and families can stay active, Ritchie stated. The province added that the next application period will start in December. Thank you for watching. Please tune in again to find out what we will be talking about on The Record.